Before we get started with this episode, we have a major favor to ask you.
If you could subscribe, like, and comment, especially with somebody that you'd love to see on the show, we would really appreciate that, and it would be amazing.
This helps us more than you know. In fact, once we hit 1,000 subscribers, and that is our goal, we are going to choose 2 of you to come to our very first Shoreline Show meetup with our team and our past guest.
And if you want more of the Shoreline Show, you can get on us on all the major audio podcast platforms.
Now, let's get on to the next episode. Well, hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Shoreline Show.
That's right.
Yeah.
Another one.
Another day.
Another day.
And we're almost to the end of the year. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. It flew by for me. I don't know if it did for you, but this year was probably one of the fastest years I've experienced. And I don't know if it's coming because COVID was a slower year, if it's... and we're just kind of getting used to these faster years again. I don't know. It was interesting.
I don't know, but it seems like it was just like January, February.
I know.
And now all of a sudden we're almost back to January, February.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's not.
Which brings me to our topic of what we wanted to talk about today.
I know. Yeah. I think it's a great topic for the time of year. It's that time of year where everybody's thinking, what did I accomplish this year?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Did I do anything that was productive for the year? And I think people are questioning. And typically January 1st is a time of year where people are like, okay, this is a new year.
Yeah. New Year's resolutions.
New Year's resolutions. Uh-huh. So
I hate New Year's resolutions.
I do too. Because you can start them at any time, but I have a hate, but I also like them in some ways. I hate them for the sake of why does it have to be a new year for you to be great today? Correct. But I also think that for a lot of people, it's a gateway drug into setting goals. If you haven't set goals and you haven't done it, it's a way to sit there because the whole world does it. It's a way to say, I'm going to try something and I'm going to try and I'm going to see how far I can make it. Unfortunately, a lot of people only make it a couple weeks into it, but because what do they say? How many days does it take to develop a habit?
Like 30.
Is it 30? Derek, how many is it? 90 days to develop a habit. Yeah. See, I knew Derek would know that, you guys. He's behind the scenes, but he actually knows everything.
Derek should be on this side of the camera, actually.
I agree. Maybe we'll get him. If you guys want, we'll get him on this camera. I think it might be a good idea. But...
yeah, 90 days. So that makes, okay, so you set this New Year's resolution, and most people don't make it past 2 to 3 weeks, and they give up.
Yeah, so, go to the gym, you'll find that out.
Exactly.
It sucks for everybody that's consistent with it.
I know, and so, and this is the time of year where people set goals, and I even do it. I do too. Because it's fiscally, all your books.
100%. It's end of year.
Yeah, it's the new year, you look at it and you compare this year to the year before and what are you going to do in the following year and
it's so important to set goals. I don't care if it's the first of the year or whatever, but if people set goals, typically they find a way to achieve it if they set them. If you take the time to write them down, I remember you and Steve, I don't know if you guys went on a date weekend or what you guys would do, but you guys would, I remember you guys coming up with a master plan, especially before this company existed. I don't know. Do you still do that? It was a big deal.
It was a big deal. We kind of don't do that anymore because we're both separate.
Right.
I do it for myself and he does it for the brokerage. But prior to us franchising and me, we do 2 separate things now. So 100%. They really don't, they don't overlap necessarily.
Right.
So, but when we did that,
that's why we're here today.
Yeah. Well, that's why we're here today. Yeah. When we did that, one of the things that we did is we didn't just go in and say, okay, well, what do we want to do next year? We were very specific and intentional.
I remember that.
About what we were going to talk about. So what we do is...
Didn't you have a folder? I swear you guys had a folder or something.
Oh, yeah. We would... it would be an all-day thing. We would, go to some place for breakfast, and then we'd sit there and work on stuff, and then sometimes we'd stay there and order lunch as well and keep working on it.
That's pretty cool.
But it was all day long that we were in this booth, and we'd end up leaving the waitress like a really big tip because, we were there all day in her booth. But, before we went, we did a lot of preparation before we went. So, I would pull out all the numbers, like, okay.
From the previous year?
From the previous year. Oh. How many sales did we do? What price range were the sales in? Yeah. So I remember one year.
That's before we had all the software to do it.
It's before we had the software. That's okay, you guys. If you're thinking about if you're thinking about a franchise and you want a franchise that is going to keep track of everything for you, you got to look at City to Shore.
Yeah, we track everything, and we have the software to do it.
It tracks everything. And before that, I'd have to do it by hand, and it took forever, but it was worth it because it.
Yeah, you got to know where you're at.
It made me know where I was at. But we would look at, let's say, and I remember kind of the numbers. I remember one year when we were doing this, Steve had just come out of a year where he did 110 transactions.
Dude.
Yeah.
That's some transactions for one person.
For one person, yep. Okay. And so it wasn't just, we did 110 transactions. And
just so you guys know, that's not normal for this area. That's not normal. That's not normal at all for this area.
Right. Yeah. So it was 110 transactions. And I remember at the end of it, Steve was like, I'm tired. I do not want to do 110 transactions next year.
I remember him coming in. I remember this. And it's been actually a thought this week, which is actually interesting. Seriously, him saying this is he came in and he was like, I'm cutting things.
Yep.
He'd say that he goes, I'm quitting a lot of stuff. I go, what does that mean? He goes, I don't know. He goes, I'm just starting to cut things and quit things. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right. And he just started cutting things out. It was interesting.
Yeah. So what was really interesting about it is we looked at the 110 transactions and we said, okay, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but 50 of those transactions were under, I think at the time, it was under $175,000.
Right.
Okay.
Well, now that'd be like $250, but yeah.
Yeah. So it'd be like in nowadays terms, it'd be under $250.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. So they were under $175,000, and then the other 50, we divided those up into two groups because you had the middle group that was from 175 to let's say 350 at that time, right. And then however many were 350 and above.
Right.
Okay. And Steve's like, I don't want to do 110 transactions next year, but I want to make the same amount of money. And we looked at it, we're like, well, you should stop doing all these because the bulk of what you did was in these lower price range.
Yeah, you start to realize pretty quickly that your time is worth something.
Exactly.
In the beginning of you starting a thing, you don't think that way because you do a lot of free labor, especially starting a business or getting into real estate. But then after a while, and this is what Steve hit, is this,
yep.
My time is worth more than what I can, and it's not mean. It's not like you're like, oh, I'm too good for that.
Right.
It's not like that. It's like, I just know that I have to be able to up my time because my time's more valuable.
Yep. So what he did is really that was essentially the year that he started to build a team. So he got one agent that he said, listen, I've got this stuff. I'm going to refer anything that comes to me that's this price and below, I'm going to give to you. Yep. But you're going to give me a referral for it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, of course.
So he got referrals from that. And then he was just very intentional about, we said, okay, what is your box going to be? Okay, you're going to do, your box is you only want to do business that's, we said 200 and above. So it had to be $200,000 or more at that point in time. This was quite a few years ago. 200 and above. And if it was a buyer that was between 2 and 350, we were even going to give those away.
Right.
But if it was a listing, he was going to keep it.
Okay.
So he
Which makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So he gave away anything buyer or seller under 175. And then when you got to the 200 to whatever it was, I can't even remember the exact dollar amount, but he only kept the listings but gave the buyers away. But then if it was over a certain amount, he did both of them.
Right. That which makes sense.
Buyers or sellers over a certain amount.
Right.
And it was incredible because his transactions went like way down that year. Like,
but he made just as much.
But he made actually more.
Well, I think that's what makes them a sense. If people are paying attention to where they're trying to go, I think sometimes taking a step back, you think you are, to take 3 steps forward is what you do. Sometimes in life it's the opposite. You take 1 step forward and 3 steps back. But if you're doing the right thing, you can take a step back and you take 3 steps forward is what typically happens. It reminds me of, you hear about like if you're in a boat and you're across the ocean and you're a half a degree off from what your goal is. So if your goal is to make X amount of money, but that half a degree for him was literally giving away business, which in his mind, he doesn't think that's achieving his goal.
Well, no, you think, okay, if I'm giving away business, that's like money that's not going to be in my pocket. That's what you're thinking. Well, if you give it to somebody and get a referral for it, first of all, it frees up your time to go out and get the higher dollar stuff.
Definitely.
So you're freeing up your time and you're getting paid for what you're giving away.
Absolutely.
Not as much as what you would have got, but you're still getting paid.
But then you're also building people.
You're building people too, because now you're building somebody else that's going to achieve success in their life.
Right.
And now he's got 4 agents that he's handing things off to all the time.
Right. Which is probably just the referrals coming in on that is probably just as much, just that.
Right.
Is probably just as much as he made prior. Maybe not.
Right.
Who knows? But going back to that boat story I was saying is like if you were a half degree off in a boat at the, and you're one side of the ocean, on the other side, you would be a whole country off possibly. Right.
Exactly.
Like, so it's the same thing with a plane. You can't be off. You have to know that target. That's why it's important to write down your goals.
Right.
I tell these people is like, if your goal is you want to be a top producing agent and you want to be, you want to, whatever, let's say it's you want to target downtown condos. Well, the average person that is 65 and older isn't downtown.
Right.
And you're networking by going to clubs and stuff downtown. You're probably not going to get your target. If you know that you want cash deals, you want people that are a little bit typically easier to deal with, and they're above 400, maybe elderly. Hanging out and like the elderly people are, right? Because they're moving into condos. They usually have cash because they've saved their whole life. You're not going to have cash deals if you're dealing with first-time home buyers. Right. So are you hanging out with first-time home buyers? Or are you hanging out with people that are, it's all those things. I actually have made a lot of those mistakes in my life where I have spent money and time and energy into something over here. And then I thought about it and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm spending all this money over here, but this is where I'm trying to go.
Right.
And you're like, whoa, I'm on the whole different continent at that point. So I think it's really important to know exactly where you want to go. And the more refined, who really stands out to me is we have one of the agents up north. I won't mention the office, but she would do these vision boards. And that's still inspiring to this day for me because she would put on a vision board. She wanted to own a place on an island. And I think at that time, I don't know if she thought it was achievable or not, but she put it on the board, and today she owns that.
She does. She owns a really nice...
Which is crazy.
Really nice little place on an island right on the ocean.
It's insane.
It's amazing.
It's insane. So it's so important to sit there, and it might not happen exactly, but usually your goals are within your reach. They're like right there.
Right.
And you don't believe you can do it unless you actually do it. And
I have another example, and I'm not going to say the name, but I was just up helping Mary Ann. She had a question on processing a commission, and this particular person it was a luxury property that came through. And if you know, this year we started the luxury brand at City to Shore, and this luxury thing came through, and Marian's like, I've never done one of these. Well, Marianne is stepping in for Lori right now, and so it's like she had a question.
You're telling me business has obstacles?
Yeah,
exactly. All the people that typically help us with stuff decided they want to take a vacation right now,
yes.
so which they all deserve it.
They all deserve.
We're no complaints.
But I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, oh, that is so cool. That's a luxury property that's coming through for this particular person. But here's what I know about this person. Like a year and a half ago, he said, you know what? I'm going to join this golf country club.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
And it was
because he knew where he wanted to go.
Yep. And it was a big, hefty fee to join this country club thing.
I can imagine. Some of them are like 50 grand, 25 to 50 grand.
I don't know how much it was, but he joined it. And today I'm seeing a luxury property come through. I guarantee he got that on the golf course.
I think I know who you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And I know that he was, I mean, I know the guy, he loves golf. So and that's not the only reason he did it. But I know that was the biggest reason. I don't think anybody's paying $25,000 to $50,000 a year just to go play golf, because I don't spend that and I play golf. Mm-hmm. He had an agenda. And he knew where he wanted to spend the money. He knew where he wanted to go, and it worked.
Yep.
If you put the work in and it kind of talked about like you are who you hang out with, and he made a decision. He wants to hang out with country club people.
Yep.
And that's what he did, and it worked.
You're not going to get a luxury listing like going out to eat at a fast food restaurant every night. No, typically, I mean, there's a chance, but it's all about percentages, right? Mm-hmm. The likeliness of you going to hang out at Chuck E. Cheese and finding somebody, it's like, no, it's people with families and these things. If you want business owners, you're hanging out at a country club. Mm-hmm. I mean, I look at my office, and if you look at majority of the people that run out of my office, it's people that are in the same stage of life as that I am. Mm-hmm. They're all family people. They all have kids. And the reason for it is why I recruited them. And where do I recruit people? They're all your friends.
And it's people that have kids. It's at baseball games, and it's at wherever I'm at. I mean, I think about like two of my my agents. I believe I met them both at baseball games. My kids' baseball games. They're sitting next to me like, and so naturally, we're going to progress through life together. Yeah. Which is interesting. But Craig, it's all good. I don't think he would care, but that's his thing. Yeah, for sure.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So, goal setting is something this time of year that people are going to want to think about doing. And what I would highly recommend that you do, whether like for Steve and I, we did it as a team, as a couple, but if you're just a single agent,
or just owning your own business. Yeah.
Owning your own business. I would recommend getting, even if your spouse is not involved in your business, getting their buy-in.
Well, I think the reason for it is it starts with vision.
It does.
Because if you don't have a vision for where you want to go, and that's why partnerships can be tricky. Mm-hmm. Because if both partners don't have the same vision. I always joke around, and I think I said it on the show at one point in time, but it's like if you have a vision for something, like we're doing our convention, and you have a vision, and Rennie comes in and he takes your hand and you're painting a picture, and I take your hand and I start doing this with it as you're painting a picture. That picture doesn't look anything like you attended the picture does, because Rennie keeps taking your hand and moving it all over this canvas that you're trying to paint. And that's why, especially if you're partners with somebody and they're trying to do something, you leave them alone. You offer your guidance, but you try to leave them alone for the most part. You guide and you lead, but you don't want somebody to sit there because otherwise you have a thing that doesn't make sense and nobody understands it because it doesn't make sense. And if somebody has a vision, it might take a little bit, but it's every little detail that brings that beautiful thing to come together.
Right.
So you have to have a vision first.
Exactly. And when you have that vision, you have to go back and look at where you've gone and what got you to where you're at right now?
What works, what doesn't work.
What got you to where you are, and because what got you to where you are isn't going to get you to where you want to go.
Definitely.
Right? So you're going to have to change and adjust. If Steve continued to go down the same path and do the same things, he would have been running himself ragged and having another year.
It probably affected a lot of things. It probably would have, it could have affected, and I'm not saying it would or wouldn't have, but it couldn't have, I mean, if we're being honest, it could have affected your marriage. It could have affected your kids. It could have affected a lot of things.
Right.
But he knew that he wanted to have a good marriage. He knew he wanted to have a good family. He knew he knew what he wanted. Mm-hmm. I think the vision for what he wanted, and he realized, all right, it's disrupting things. I remember at the same time, he'd always talk about disruptions. Yep. Like you have to be willing to disrupt what's going on right now. Yeah. So you see it with a lot of podcasts. Mm-hmm. I mean, even us, the last podcast that we did, we disrupted a little bit. It was a little different than what we typically do. But who knows? I mean, this podcast could be talking about stock market. Who knows what it looks like in a year? But you have to be willing to disrupt it for what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
For sure.
So everybody should be thinking about their goals for next year.
Definitely.
And if you have any questions about what you need to do for goal setting,
reach out to us.
Reach out.
Yeah, we can help you out with that.
Yeah, awesome.
All right.
Good.
Have a good day.
We'll see you later, everyone.